marijuana. 80% of all African Americans incarcerated in Mississippi are incarcerated for crime for marijuana.
I haven't been sick in years. I don't even take Tylenol, sir.
Problem with drugs or alcohol?
I smoke marijuana. That's if you want to call that a problem.
I love my reefer. She made me a believer. Kept you a Mary Jane. Let me hear the holy keeper. Everybody think I'm a cuff where I believe on. And I'm gon' cuff where I believe on. I smell like loud. I'm walking on the cloud. I need a half an ounce so I can smoke right now. I love reefer. Give my baby a chance.
What the Bible say about the healing of man?
I'm talking about 1.6 grams of grass that grows out the ground from God.
That's not a debate.
I love my
Go talk to the legislature if you think marijuana ought to be legalized.
But y'all think Chad been popping chance is the thing to give you suicidal thoughts and actions. That's cool.
I love my
I'm just telling you the way it is.
I know.
I'm not
I hear
gonna
you.
lead you down some path. I'm not gonna lead you on something.
So my name is Kelly Jacobs. I am the sponsor and the author of Ballot Initiative 48, which asks if Mississippi wants to regulate and tax marijuana like alcohol and pardon nonviolent cannabis offenders. We also want to allow Mississippi farmers to grow industrial hemp, which is a type of marijuana plant with low THC. Industrial hemp takes half the land and half the water of cotton, so it's an ideal crop here for Greenwood, which used to be the capital of cotton. It also doesn't use as many chemicals, so it's cheaper for farmers to grow, and it provides more customers because industrial hemp can be sold for food, for oil, for plastics, for fiber for clothing, and fiber for paper. So marijuana is already being grown in Tennessee, why not in Mississippi? Mississippi farmers should be allowed to do that, and this ballot initiative does that. I'm going to talk to you about the ballot initiative itself, what it does, but first I'm going to talk to you about the process that Mississippi has set up for a ballot initiative petition. In 1972, Mississippi altered our constitution so that we could have, the people could ask the government to change the constitution. At that time we had 5 congressional districts, and at this time we must use those 5 congressional district boundaries for the purpose of the ballot initiative, even though we don't always know where they are. The maps are no longer used because we're in a 4 congressional district system. But for the purpose of a ballot initiative, people of Mississippi who want to change the Constitution must gather 12% of the number of voters who voted in the last gubernatorial race from 5 different districts in Mississippi in order for their initiative to be put onto the ballot. So right now that number is 21,443 certified signatures, only of registered voters, from each of the 5 districts. If one of the districts does not gather that minimum number, the entire ballot initiative fails. And you cannot take an overage from like District 5, which is right now on the beach gathering signatures from Carnival. If they get more signatures than they need, District 2, which has our fewest number of volunteers, cannot take that overage to get up to the 21,443. And the reason for that is so that one district of Mississippi cannot dictate to the rest of them how we're going to alter our Constitution. All 5 areas must agree by having that minimum number of signatures. So when you decide that you want to write a ballot initiative, you have to properly write it, which is a mystery of how to do that, and then you submit it to the Secretary of State's office. The Attorney General of the state of Mississippi writes the ballot title and the ballot summary, which appear on the front of our ballot initiative. We have to use the petition form that the Secretary of State has issued to us, which is a very uncommon size of paper for Mississippi. A legal size piece of paper is not what most residents have in their homes. But this is the size paper that we must use in a ballot initiative, and we must use the front and the back of the page. Now, when I decided that nobody else was writing a ballot initiative to legalize marijuana, even though I knew that young Mississippians really wanted this initiative, I looked at the Colorado initiative to try and just copy that, because I figured I don't have a law degree. Attorneys wrote that one, so let's just copy what they wrote. But what Colorado wrote is 12 pages long, and what Mississippi requires is that a ballot initiative be totally stapled together, all parts of it, so that every registered voter who wants to sign it can read it in its entirety right there before they sign it. And I did not foresee Mississippi being successful to have an initiative that had to have 12 pages stapled onto every petition. So we started, I put the initiative onto a Facebook page, and I asked people who knew stuff about cannabis, because I've never smoked cannabis, and I'm sorry, but I've never been interested in marijuana. And I started a Facebook page so that people who knew more about that could give me their input. And we started editing down. We went through 47 different edits on this initiative. And I just started getting rid of huge sections. I decided we didn't need the definitions first, and then I decided we didn't need section 3 because it was repetitive of section 1, and then I decided, you know what, we didn't need section 1 because if we were going to succeed, we needed to only concentrate on the Mississippi Constitution. And that's what this initiative does. We write the framework of how we want our Mississippi Constitution to read, so that our Mississippi legislators will look at our laws that we have now and decide which ones are unconstitutional based upon this change and rewrite them. So if this ballot initiative is passed, there is a time period that we must observe before it becomes legal, so that the Mississippi State Legislature can change all of our laws so that they are not unconstitutional. Hello, nice to see you again. So for the purpose of a ballot initiative, the Secretary of State gives us 1 year to gather all of the signatures that we need. We're given 1 year. However, there are other deadlines that we must observe if we want to be on certain ballots. So our initiative was issued on December the 29th, 2014. So we have until December the 29th, 2015 to hand in all of our petitions if we're successful and get all 107,300 signatures. But if we take that time all the way until December, we will not be on the ballot until 2017. Most Mississippians do not want to wait that long to vote yes to regulate and tax marijuana like alcohol, or to vote no. There are some people who want to vote no. But people who want to vote no right now, just don't sign the petition. That's no enough. So if we want to be on the 2016 ballot, we have a deadline of October the 2nd, 2015 to hand in all of our petitions that have been certified by the circuit clerk. And it's difficult to do because unlike any other ballot initiative before us, there are a lot of elected officials who are not happy with this initiative and do not want it to pass. So we have circuit clerks who are refusing to certify our signatures. And the law did not ever give them a time limit when we turn in the petitions that they have to be certified for. So they could certify it the next day or they could never certify it. So we don't even have the law to lean on the circuit clerks to say, look, you were supposed to already have certified this within 2 weeks or 30 days or whatever. So they're using that loophole in many of the counties to not help Team Legalize, which is what we call ourselves, get our petitions certified. There are also some police who are resistant, who have parked their vehicles in front of collection areas, and who have harassed and arrested some people on other charges that they trump up because they're not happy with the petition. We also have mayors who have not been supportive, who have not allowed us to use public facilities to have meetings, even though we meet the guidelines. Team Legalize, I'm the captain of Team Legalize, we are a non-for-profit group of volunteers. We are not asking anybody for money. We are asking people for their time to gather signatures and to turn those signatures in. So we meet the qualifications that libraries and mayors have to use public facilities. But we have had some libraries call the police when they find out what we're talking about. So we don't have freedom of speech in those libraries, or just forbid us from using the room and pretend that we are doing something wrong, which is just to have a conversation about regulating and taxing marijuana like alcohol. So the resistance from the government officials is really unfortunate, especially when some of them have been employers. We've found out that employers have been threatening firing people for having the petition there at work because they do not like the content of it. And on that note, I do want to say that a lot of people who come to hear me speak about the ballot initiative, their main question is about, if this initiative passes, will my employer be able to fire me if I still use cannabis? And I have to say to them, yes. Because when you work for someone, you work on their terms. You're hired on their terms, how much they're going to pay you, what days you have off, and if they want to do any drug testing. If you agree to those terms, then those are the terms that you have. But probably if the federal government changes the scheduling of marijuana, which they should do because they have marijuana scheduled as a Schedule I drug having no medicinal value. Meanwhile, the same federal government has a patent on marijuana for its medicinal values, and they receive royalties every month from pharmaceutical companies on that patent. And we have 23 states in the United States right now that have legalized marijuana for medicinal purposes. So we have a huge part of America that knows that cannabis has medicinal value. Even the Veterans Association, the VA, has said that veterans have found that cannabis aids them in treating their PTSD. But here we are, Mississippi, we have so many veterans who have proudly served their country and have PTSD. If they use the VA's recommendation of cannabis to treat their PTSD, their biggest danger is being arrested. And that's not right. That's not how we should be treating our veterans. People, Mississippians who want to have a medicine for whatever ails them, they should not be under the threat of arrest to use it. So the ballot initiative process, like I said, we have 1 year to collect the signatures, and all the signatures have to be from registered voters. This has been a big problem so far, not only for us, but it was also a problem for ballot initiative number 42 that complete the Better Schools, Better Jobs. They also had a huge number of rejected signatures because people cannot follow the directions. They had 60,000 rejected signatures, 60,000. So far, we have 1,600 certified signatures that have come to my home, and more than 800 additional signatures have been rejected by the circuit clerks. At this time, I have been sending a letter to everyone who's rejected to let them know, thank you for signing our petition, but did you know that your signature was rejected? And I can't tell you exactly why it was rejected. It could be because you weren't registered to vote, or you didn't print so we could read it, or you used an address where you're living now instead of the address where you're registered to vote. If you want your signature to count, then please take the enclosed petition and contact your circuit clerk and find out what you did wrong, and then sign the petition and turn it in. And we think this is really important to do for the success of our initiative, because we think we'll recapture those people who wanted to sign the initiative. They'll find out what they did wrong. Plus, we're hoping that they will add more signatures to that petition, so we won't just get one signature back, but a whole bunch of them. So people not following the directions on the initiative is a problem. Not printing it properly. We've had people printed on letter-sized paper, which is a shorter piece of paper than legal. All of those signatures are disqualified by a circuit clerk. We've had people not print the back of the petition, so then all the signatures are disqualified, and people not fill out the bottom of which is the circulator part. So a ballot initiative petition in Mississippi is very difficult to do. We have to have a lot of people cooperating. A lot of people have to be educated about what is required on the petition for it to be successful, so they fill it out properly. And a lot of people have to find out about it. And here in the 2nd District, we don't have as many people using the internet, so we really have to rely on local press, thank you very much for coming today, on letting people know that there's a ballot initiative, and if you're interested in supporting it, come and sign the petition. And as you can see, you know, everybody from Greenwood is not here today because they have jobs, and no matter when you have a meeting, somebody can't come. So today, one of the major things that I've been doing is trying to recruit other people who have come to please volunteer to become a member of Team Legalize to collect signatures. So we call ourselves Team Legalize because we're owning all of the messages of the ballot initiative. We want marijuana legalized, and we demand that Mississippians be forgiving. We demand that they be forgiving. Our initiative has 2 parts. The first part I'll talk to you about in a moment. The second part is about how we require the governor of Mississippi to pardon all nonviolent cannabis offenders. And we're embracing that. We demand forgiveness. We're not going to let the opposition say, oh, we shouldn't be forgiving, oh, how terrible it is. No. This ballot initiative is written as it is now. It cannot be changed. We require that the people of Mississippi be forgiving. We require that the governor pardon everyone. If the governor refuses to pardon, then we can go to Chancery Court. That's how we wrote it, because right now we have a governor who said, I'm never pardoning anybody like Haley Barbour who pardoned 200. Well, we're talking about thousands of people who need to be pardoned. They need to be pardoned because their avenue to revenue has been ended. They cannot get a job. They cannot get a job, and they'll be criticized for not getting a job because they have a criminal record. Oh, they smoked a plant that didn't harm anyone. So we want that record forgiven, and as long as it was not violent. So right now, the state of Mississippi spends $335 million every year incarcerating everyone. More than half of that is just on cannabis. Mississippi spends $200 million a year prosecuting and adjudicating just on a plant that doesn't harm anyone. You can get more time in jail for owning 8 ounces of marijuana than you can for murder. 15 years. So the reason why we have this crazy system is because of the federal government. The federal government went ballistic with President Nixon, and they have forced states like Mississippi to go to war against their own citizens and incarcerate them, separate them from their families, and cut them off from an avenue to revenue. And that's why this ballot initiative is so important, because this ballot initiative is not about me. This is about Mississippi. If Mississippi wants this to happen, Mississippi will figure out how to make it happen. Mississippians will copy the paperwork that has to be copied. And Mississippians will have meetings like this, whether 2 people come or 100 people come, and we will gather signatures so that we will be successful. And the success doesn't have to be measured on whether or not we get it on the ballot. The success can just be measured that we are on the road towards legalization. That there will be many things that will happen in the coming year that will change the groundwork that we have now. I expect the federal government to change the scheduling of marijuana from that stupid Schedule 1 off to a different scheduling that says that marijuana has medicinal uses. And then when that happens, some of the employers might look at, why am I doing this to my employees? I let them take aspirin, I let them take, Oxycontin, whatever. I don't test for that. So, employers will make their own decision, but it won't be because Mississippi changes our constitution. It'll be because the federal government changes their minds about the scheduling of marijuana. So, here in Mississippi, when we want to have a successful ballot initiative, we have to do a lot of voter registration. That we estimate there are 360,000 eligible but not registered voters in the state of Mississippi. And how do we get that number? We just have the census, so we know how many people are over the age of 18. Then they take away the number that are already registered to vote and the very small list of felons who are not allowed to vote, and that's how they came up with 360,000. A very large portion of those unregistered voters are actually people who think they do not have the right to vote because they have a felony. The state of Mississippi allows felons to vote. It's only a small number of felons that are not allowed to vote. It's only a small number because any out-of-state felon, that means anyone whose felony was convicted against them in a different state than Mississippi, they can vote here. They can vote in Mississippi. Once they establish residency and they're an American citizen and they're 18 years of age, they can vote here. It doesn't matter if they've murdered or nothing like that. We only prohibit some felons from voting, and those felons are spelled out exactly on our voter registration form. We do not prohibit people who are on parole from voting. I heard a lot of that today. People came in and said, they're on parole, they can't vote. No. Mississippi spells out on the voter registration form who cannot vote. And people don't believe me. I have them look at it. I say, there's no drugs on here. And they'll read it. They'll read carjacking and forestry and murder, and they won't see anything on there about drugs or drunk driving. And I said, that's right. You can be a felon and you can vote in Mississippi. That's the law. And if you don't have to believe me, you can call your circuit clerk where you live and say, hey, I've had some trouble with the law, but I think I'm eligible to vote. Can you look me up? And the circuit clerk will go and look you up. And if your name is not on the list, you are entitled to register and vote. So in Mississippi, of those 360,000, I am predicting that we're going to take a huge chunk out of them because many of them want this ballot initiative to succeed. They want to get rid of their record, rightfully so. They want to get rid of the record of their family members or friends. And so they are going to take a hard look at whether or not they can register and they can vote, especially if people are talking about it, that not all felons lose the right to vote. You're even supposed to be allowed to vote if you're in jail, as long as you're registered to vote. And Susan and I went to the DeSoto County Jail last month, and we registered 40 people to vote in the DeSoto County Jail, and we got 80 signatures on our petition. And I'll tell you, my knees were, I was like this. I was so scared. When there was all that barbed wire and the gates, and I had to talk into the microphone, but we got in and there were doors locking behind us. I said, they're never going to let us out. But they let us out, and the people who were in there, most of them, we were told, are only in there for 3 to 5 days. So most of the people, they took a petition with them, so I know that they're gathering signatures once they got out. But it's just a fact that all taxpayers in Mississippi should be allowed to vote. I don't know why we say some shouldn't, because we don't even say all the same kind should, But that's how it is in Mississippi. Not all felons lose their right to vote, and we're asking everyone who is interested in supporting Ballot Initiative 48 to please register and to vote, to please have voter registration forms. Universities, for example, are an excellent place to gather signatures for an initiative. Unfortunately, when I've gone to the universities, I'd say 3/4 of the students there are not registered. They're not registered. I ran out of voter registration forms when I went over here to the Kahoma Community College. I had more people not registered than I had forms. And so voter registration is something that we should have. Unfortunately, the Secretary of State doesn't really agree with me, because I asked for voter registration forms. I'm the initiative sponsor, so I need to have a lot of voter registration forms, and I'm already spending a lot of my own money duplicating the petition. But they gave me 50 forms, and they said, that's it. That's all you get, 50 forms. I said, you gotta be kidding me. That's it. Your initiative gets 50 forms. I went back another day. I thought, I'll ask somebody else. Oh, no, Miss Jacobs, we already gave you your 50. That's really a mockery, making a mockery of our system to say that, I can be responsible for only 50 people to register to vote. When we have 360,000, I don't think that I'm supposed to have to pay for all of them for their forms. But the voter registration form can be downloaded from the internet and filled out at home, but it has to be handed in. You cannot register to vote online, and you cannot sign our petition online. There is a bogus petition online, Petition 48, and they pretend to the readers, you can sign in here, and they have my petition right there. There it is. Sign it. People click it, and then they come in here and they say, well, I already signed it online. It's like, no, that's a bogus one. Doesn't mean anything. The state of Mississippi has to issue the petition, and it has to be on paper. So I've talked to you about the initiative and the second part of the initiative, but I'm going to talk to you about the first part of the initiative. We're trying to legalize marijuana so that it is regulated like alcohol. So all of the alcohol laws are supposed to be harsher or the same as new marijuana laws. If somebody wants to grow marijuana, they're allowed to grow 9 plants, and it's nobody's business. If you grow 10 to 500 plants, then we define you as a farmer. And as a marijuana farmer, not industrial hemp, but a marijuana with high THC farmer, you have to pay your circuit clerk $25 to register as a farm. I think it's very reasonable, $25. If you want to grow more than 500 plants, then the fee's going to be more. I don't know, your circuit clerk will set it. But I was assured by the president of the Mississippi Industrial Hemp Association that most growers of marijuana of good THC will not want to grow it outside because of the light and the wind, that they'll want to have it controlled in an inside building so that they can control, because of cross-pollination and stuff. So, 500 plants, if you want more, then you just pay for it, and it's for 1 year. That's if you want to grow, if you want to be a grower. Now, if you want to sell it, this ballot initiative is about jobs. We're trying to create jobs all over Mississippi, people who can get jobs and real jobs. If you want to sell it, a license to sell marijuana is $1,000. You pay your circuit clerk $1,000 for 1 year, and that money stays with your circuit clerk in the county where you live. Then, as a seller, you have to charge a 7% sales tax, and that 7% sales tax goes to the state of Mississippi, and the money goes towards education. It goes towards education until 2020. Then 2020, then we can revisit it, and decide if we still want the money to go to education, or if we're making a lot of money like Colorado, if we've totally paid for it, do we want it to go to roads or anything like that? Just a minute, sir. So that's the tax. So the tax is 7%, because I was trying to figure out what the alcohol tax was to make it the same as alcohol, but they have different levels on alcohol, different tax on beer and wine and hard liquor. And so I tried to do it like the tobacco tax, but they have it per cigarette. You know, so it just seemed like 7% was the same as food, and the only way that it can ever be changed is to go down. That's what the Constitution says. If they want to change the tax on marijuana, it can only be changed to be lowered. And the reason for that is because we are not trying to make a bonanza on the people of Mississippi. If they want to consume marijuana, we want it to be affordable, because marijuana is safer than alcohol and it's safer than tobacco. If we legalize marijuana, more people will be using it. It's just a fact, because people are always trying to quit smoking tobacco. And nobody has ever died from smoking marijuana. That's according to Dr. Sanjay Gupta. But 100,000 people die every year from smoking tobacco. And 400,000 people die a year from consuming alcohol. So people who want to have a different choice, who are not using cannabis now, they don't use it because it's unlawful. But if they would like something that relaxes them, and I think they probably will, they might choose to use cannabis instead of alcohol or tobacco. So consumption goes up, and that means that we're going to need a lot more farmers and people to clip the leaves and people to install the fencing and the security and all that. So the ballot initiative tries to encourage Mississippi to pass it because it will create jobs, it will create employees who are able to work, and that will generate a lot of income. It's not just income in our pocket, but also income because more households have money so they can pay taxes on it. So if you look at it long term, the state of Mississippi will have more tax money. They might not have to take so much tax money from the federal government. Right now, about 46% of our budget comes from the federal government. And yesterday, the day before, I guess we gave $2 million to Nissan instead of to education. You know, so sometimes we don't understand what our government is doing. But we do understand when jobs come around that people in Mississippi need jobs, they need good paying jobs, and this is what legalizing marijuana will do. It will take the money that has been millions of dollars that have been going to Colombia and Mexico and keep them here in Mississippi. Are there any questions? Yes.
About how many non-violent felony marijuana people do you think are going to be released with this initiative?
I don't know. I used to know. I just can't remember. When I started writing the initiative, one of the things that the initiative requires is the petitioner to concoct a piece of paper that says how much money will this make or cost, called a revenue impact statement. So when I first put in the initiative, I didn't submit a revenue impact statement because I figured, I don't know. And I read that later on that the Secretary of State will write their own. So I figured they're more qualified. I mean, I'm just a little community activist. I'm not an attorney. I have no qualifications to write this. So I just put it in, and the Attorney General's office called and said, you know, Kelly, you did not submit a revenue impact statement, so the whole thing can be thrown out in court. Great. So I had to withdraw my support of that initiative and start all over again. So that's when I started initiative number 47. And Susan and I got together and we wrote a 4-page document on the revenue impact that we thought it would have on Mississippi. And there were charts that we got from the Mississippi Department of Revenue that said how many people are incarcerated with cannabis and how much we spend, $200 million. So I just can't remember, hello, welcome. I just can't remember the number of how many people that would be, but the number is not just those incarcerated. People who have already served time, they can be pardoned and want to be pardoned. So it's thousands of people. And I didn't put an ending date on it because I figured you could be from out of state and then hear about it 5 years from now and you want to have it cleared, your conviction cleared. And so right now our Mississippi Constitution says that if you want to ask the governor for a pardon, you must advertise your question in the newspaper of the county where you were convicted or a nearby county if there's no newspaper for 1 month. And then after that 1 month, you can write your letter asking the governor for a pardon, and Phil Bryant will say no. So we added, this constitutional amendment adds to that to say that you know, once you have done that, we call it a qualified on there. So once you've done that advertising, then the governor has 60 days to give you your pardon. That's how we changed it. So if you have been convicted of a nonviolent cannabis offense, so then if the governor doesn't give you your pardon in 60 days, then you can go to Chancery Court. Yes.
What the hell was the question he just asked?
It's just a joke, sir. So the thing, the biggest issue about the cannabis is that it just hasn't hurt anyone. So I get a lot of people saying, well, what about the gateway effect? You know, they want to say this hocus pocus gateway. And, you know, the gateway is just smoke and mirrors to not answer a real question about, has marijuana killed anyone by smoking it? No. So how come it's illegal? You know, they can't say, they can't have the tables turned because has tobacco killed people? Yes. So why is it legal? You know, as alcohol? Yes. So, you know, the gateway theory about how it makes you use other drugs has not been proven scientifically, but worse yet, it's hard on our youth because many young people will illegally go to purchase cannabis and find out that the person who's selling it doesn't have anything but has other drugs and has guns, and then next thing you know, our youth are subjected to, you know, the surlier side of life, and we don't really want that. But this ballot initiative is about selling it to adults, and it's about having an adult conversation.
What's the age thing? 21,
It's 21 years of
25?
age, just like alcohol. 21 years of age, just like alcohol, yes.
I've been, Mr. Bob gave me a few of the initiatives to fill out and everything. A common misconception I've got from a lot of people, they want to sign it, but they're concerned about, well, if I sign it, I might lose my job and all that. I mean, what would you say to them?
Okay, so this is a common question, and I'm glad that you asked it because a lot of people are very afraid of this initiative and we've never had an initiative like this. You know, the school initiatives and the taxing initiatives, they don't threaten your job, and this does because some employers and stuff and some people and some churches are very vindictive. And I tell people, if you need to keep a low profile, then do not sign the petition because this is a legal document of the state of Mississippi. The circuit clerk keeps track of who signs a petition so that you cannot sign it more than once. Using the Freedom of Information Act, you can contact your circuit clerk and find out who has signed the petition. And then the circuit clerk has to tell you everybody who signed it. So it's no secret who has signed it. So if you want to be supportive, then find somebody else who is a registered voter to sign the petition, but don't sign it. Because I cannot guarantee how my fellow Mississippians will treat you. And this has been used, unfortunately, in many counties that are dry, that are trying to go wet. Many counties have to have a petition in order to be able to sell liquor. And the opposition to that has petitioned the circuit clerk for the list of who signed it and then gone after them personally. And that's why many people have a fear because they've seen it used here in Mississippi against them. And so they have a right to their fear. So I just feel if we can't find a number of voters, the 12% that we need, the 21,443, then the time isn't right for Mississippi to legalize marijuana. You know, the time isn't right. But we're looking hard now. We're looking hard. We're Team Legalize, and every day we're looking on the internet at articles about the press are writing and thanking them for writing their articles about our ballot initiative or about other cannabis issues. We are trying to find other volunteers who will pass out petitions. We are looking at upcoming festivals and flea markets so that we can take petitions to them and sign them. This past weekend, a guy in Lee County got 650 signatures at the Lee County Furniture Flea Market. That's our best ever. Our best ever was at the flea market. So now we know flea markets is going to be a way to go because it's a place where people go. They don't have a bunch of judgmental church members there or work people there. And they can just be themselves and they can be innocuous, and that evidently it worked very well. I don't know how many rejections, probably like 300 rejections, but still that'll be 350 signatures that we'll get from there. And we have to get the 21,443 signatures from each of the 5 districts in order to be successful. Yes?
If someone does sign the petition twice, does that nullify both signatures? Or?
No, sir. It's just the second time their signature is rejected. And I've already had that to see it. And a lot of people who sign it and their signature is rejected, the circuit clerk doesn't keep track of them. If you signed the petition and your signature was rejected because you put the wrong address on there, you're not on it. Or if you signed the petition and no one ever turned it in, and we have a lot of those. We have a lot of people who get the petition, but then they get some signatures, but now it's in a drawer because they only got 4 petitions. They didn't get all 10, so they haven't turned them in. So that's why I instigated Deadline Fridays. I try and get Teen Legalized to turn in your petitions by Friday, each Friday, so that we have petitions coming in, and so far we have 26 out of the 82 counties have certified petitions and gotten them to me. And that's not a very good number. We have 82 counties. I would rather say that all 82 counties have sent me certified petitions instead of just 26 of them. So we have volunteers. I don't remember how many volunteers. We don't have volunteers from all counties, but I think we have volunteers from like 78 counties. So that means that not even all the volunteers have gotten their petitions certified by their circuit clerks. And there's no way of telling if I don't have them because the circuit clerk has refused to certify them, or if they just haven't turned them in. But it's a complicated process to get a petition printed, and then to get signatures, and then to turn it in, and then to get it back to me, the sponsor. But we're working really hard to do that.
What's the deadline? October 2nd, something like that?
We have 3 deadlines. Tomorrow's a deadline Friday. And then October the 2nd is the deadline to be on the 2016 ballot. But we still have time. We're given 1 year to gather signatures. Our final deadline is December the 29th, 2015. If we don't have the signatures that we require by then the initiative is done. And we have to wait 2 years before we try it again. Are we good? Thank you everyone for coming. I hope that if you want to volunteer, you'll sign my paperwork back there to be a member of Teen Legalize. We have plenty of ballot initiative petitions and voter registration forms, and I hope that you'll help us do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
I love my reefer, the freedom of us. I blow it in your face, give a fuck about who you was. Then I tell you it's good for you now. Then I tell you it's good for you. I love my reefer.
And keep down the young African-American man who chooses not to wear a certain tie, who chooses not to work a 9 to 5. No man should have to.
I haven't been sick.
Every man should be able to earn a living. Let's make legitimate entrepreneurs out of our young African-American men.
Come on in.
Let's look out for the future of our children. Let's not take fathers from their children. Let's not take sons from their mothers. No more jail time for marijuana. No more jail time for marijuana.